beneath the ash tree. Eleanor first met Jonah on a Thursday, just past midnight, when the world was holding its breath between yesterday and tomorrow. She was 24, heartbroken, and halfway through a bottle of cheap wine, standing barefoot in the middle of her grandmother's garden. The air smelled like overripe lavender and damp earth. She had come home to forget a failed engagement, a job that fell apart, and a city that stopped feeling like hers. Jonah appeared from the darkness without warning, standing just beyond the old ash tree, wearing a coat too thin for the cold. "You're not supposed to be here," Eleanor said. "I know," he replied. It wasn't the words that struck her. It was the way he looked at her, like he had been waiting. She found out later that he was the groundskeeper's son, come to visit after his father had fallen ill. He had a room above the tool shed and a sketch pad always under his arm. He rarely spoke, but when he did, it felt important. They spoke at night. Mostly, she wandered the garden barefoot. He followed the scent of cigarette smoke and jasmine. She told him stories she never shared with anyone. How her mother left when she was 6, how she feared she would become someone unrecognizable. He listened with eyes that didn't judge. In return, he showed her his drawings, the garden in pencil strokes, her silhouette under moonlight, the ash tree with roots like veins. "I draw things I don't want to forget," he said once. "Memories lie, ink doesn't." As the weeks passed, Eleanor found herself looking for him in the shadows, in the quiet, in the places she used to go to be alone. She painted again. She laughed at things that weren't funny just to hear her own voice. He changed nothing, and yet somehow, everything. But there was a silence in Jonah too. An edge to his sadness, like grief left unspoken. He never talked about his mother. He never talked about why he avoided the east wing of the house, or why he kept an old locket hidden in his coat pocket. Then, one night, as the first frost of the season kissed the windows, he told her the truth. "I wasn't supposed to meet you." She blinked. "What do you mean?" "I was only meant to say goodbye." He explained, haltingly, that he had been gone for 2 years. That he had died in a car accident one town over, on his way to reconcile with someone he loved. But something tethered him back. A promise, a place, the garden. "You're not real," she whispered. "I was," he said softly, "long enough to remember you." She ran, back to the house, to her room, to the warmth of denial. But sleep didn't come. When she returned to the garden the next morning, the ash tree was bare. Jonah was gone. Days passed, weeks. Winter buried the garden in silence. No footprints, no cigarette butts by the bench. No sketches tucked in flower pots. Eleanor stopped painting. But she couldn't forget him. In the spring, she returned to the ash tree. And there, beneath a root, she found a weathered notebook. Inside, pages of her face, her laugh, her barefoot walks. Notes in the margins. She hums when she's sad. She smells like rosemary and regret. I hope I'm wrong about the end. On the last page, a single line. If love can anchor the dead, maybe it can set the living free. Eleanor didn't cry. She stayed under the ash tree until the sun disappeared, holding the notebook to her chest. Over time, she restored the garden. She opened it to the public, filled it with art and benches and memory. She told people it was built in honor of someone who once lived there. She never gave a name. But every autumn, when the ash leaves begin to fall, she feels a familiar presence just behind her shoulder, just out of sight. And she smiles. Because some love stories don't end. They simply wait to be remembered. Eleanor never remarried. Suitors came and went, intrigued by her quiet beauty and the mystery she carried like perfume. But none ever got past the gate of the garden. She'd sit with them beneath the ash tree, offer tea and soft laughter, but her eyes always wandered, searching for a shadow only she could see. Some called her lonely, some called her tragic. But Eleanor never minded. She knew the difference between solitude and sorrow. And in that space between, she found peace. One summer, a writer came to stay at the guest house beside the garden. He was young, full of questions, curious about the woman who painted ghosts into her flowers. He asked her if the garden was built for a lover. She said yes, but didn't elaborate. He asked if he had died. She said everyone we love dies, eventually. But some leave echoes behind, whispers in wind chimes, footsteps in dew, sketches buried in roots. In time, the garden became more than memory, it became legend. Lovers proposed beneath the ash tree. Children learned to draw in the old greenhouse, now filled with sun and color. At the garden's center stood a sculpture, a man and woman, their backs almost touching, heads tilted just slightly as if listening to a memory between them. Eleanor never said who they were, but anyone who looked closely could see her own eyes in the curve of the woman's face. On the 25th anniversary of the garden's opening, Eleanor stood beneath the ash tree one last time. Her hands had grown thinner, her hair silver, but her eyes, those stayed sharp, wistful. She placed a single wildflower at the base of the tree and whispered, "I kept the promise. I remembered." And when the wind blew through the branches, a single leaf drifted down, brushing her shoulder like a touch too familiar to be chance. That night, she passed away in her sleep. Peaceful, smiling, the notebook still rested on her nightstand, open to that final page. It was said the house grew quieter after that. The garden still bloomed, but some visitors claimed the air carried more than the scent of lavender, laughter in the shadows, warmth in sudden breezes, an odd comfort that made them feel seen. And once every year, when the leaves begin to turn, the ash tree glows gold in the morning light. The sculpture at the center casts twin shadows. And those who pause long enough beneath the branches swear they hear two voices in the stillness, one soft and steady, the other laughing like the world is new again. You know, not every Minecraft world is about fighting mobs or building megabases. Sometimes, it's about remembering. This is the story of Eleanor and Jonah. And it begins in a garden, beneath an old ash tree. Eleanor wasn't looking for love. She had come home to forget a life falling apart, a city that didn't want her anymore. But there, in the garden her grandmother once tended, something waited for her. A boy with sad eyes and a sketchbook. His name was Jonah. He wasn't loud or charming. He just listened. At first, they spoke only at night, when the world felt quiet enough for secrets. He drew the garden. She started painting again, They didn't say, "I love you." But everything they did was a kind of whisper. "I see you." But then, the twist. Jonah wasn't supposed to be there. He told her the truth one frost-touched night. He had died 2 years ago. A car crash. On his way to make things right with someone. But something pulled him back. A promise. A garden. Her. Eleanor didn't believe it at first. She ran. She tried to forget him. But love leaves footprints, even in places the living can't follow. When she returned to the ash tree, he was gone. But beneath the roots, he'd left a notebook. Pages and pages of sketches. Her face, her laugh, her story. On the last page, he wrote, "If love can anchor the dead, maybe it can set the living free." Years passed. Eleanor stayed. She rebuilt the garden. Turned it into a place where people could heal. No one knew who the garden was for. But some said it felt like someone was always watching. She never married. She didn't need to. Her love had already lived. And in some ways, never left. The day she died, the ash tree dropped a single golden leaf. Some say the wind whispered her name. Now, every year when the leaves turn orange, the shadows beneath that tree stretch just a little longer. And if you listen closely, you might hear laughter, like the world is starting over again. Maybe that's the real power of love stories. They don't always end. They echo. In blocks placed carefully. In paths worn by memory. In spaces we build to remember those we've lost, or those we never got to keep. I didn't come to this world expecting to find a story. But as I stood under the tree, just like Eleanor once did, I felt it. A warmth. A stillness. Like someone had just left and would be back any second. So I stayed. I rebuilt her garden. Placed flowers where her footsteps might have been. Hung lanterns from branches like little beacons in the dark. And then I built the statue. 2 figures side by side. Not touching, just close enough to almost remember. Some stories in Minecraft are about redstone machines or beating the Ender Dragon. But this one, it's about 2 souls. One lost in time, and one who refused to let go. So if you ever feel something while you're building, while you're exploring, a presence, a quiet pull, maybe it's not just your imagination. Maybe it's someone waiting to be remembered. And maybe, just maybe, somewhere beneath the ash tree, Eleanor and Jonah still walk together. In pixel and shadow. In every world that dares to remember them. I come back here sometimes. Not to build, not to fight, but to just be. To listen. To remember. Because even in a world made of pixels, there's space for stories that breathe. For grief that lingers. And for love that never really dies. Sometimes someone in chat will ask me, "Is this real? Did this actually happen?" And I'll say, maybe not in the way you think, but in the way that matters. Yes, because the second you feel something, the moment a block becomes a memory, or a garden becomes a goodbye, that's real. So wherever you are, whoever you're thinking of tonight, build something for them. Write something. Leave a flower. Even if it's just under an old ash tree. Because stories like Eleanor and Jonas, they need someone to carry them forward. And maybe today, that someone is you. In memory of the stories we never forget, even when the world moves on. They say every Minecraft world has its seed. Some are random, some are shared, but some are chosen by something bigger. This world started with just one thing: a tree, a memory, a feeling I couldn't explain. And now, it's grown. Players visit. They leave candles. They leave letters and books. So just sit beneath the branches and listen to the rain, to the echoes, and sometimes, late at night, someone swears they saw two silhouettes standing near the statue. Just for a second, then gone. But I think that's how it's meant to be. Because not all stories need an ending. Some just become part of the world. So thank you for walking through this one with me. If it made you feel something, build your own garden, plant your own tree, name your own love story, and let someone else discover it one day. Because maybe that's how we live forever in Minecraft. Not through commands or portals, but through stories that leave something behind. Under the ash tree, we remember